Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another round of these Bandai articulated figures. I absolutely am in love with these figures. I don't know what it is about them, but they're just so cool, and I love the fact that they are so stylized, but still have pretty darn impressive articulation. And as you can see with Wave 2 of these, we've got a lot. Like, we've got quite a few, including repaints of some of the figures that were released in the first wave. So clearly from the right, you can see we have a Styracosaurus, then a Triceratops, then a Tyrannosaurus Rex, then a Spinosaurus, then a different Styracosaurus, and a different Spinosaurus. So I'm going to go ahead and move all of them out of the way, bring each one individually, and take a closer look. So when it comes to one of the newer figures, as far as like the new species and sculpts go, one of which is the Styracosaurus, and you can see it looks really cool, definitely sporting kind of a vintage look and feel, like I think a lot of these figures do. We can see the skin texture looks really good, very bumpy and rough and rugged for sure. Some really nice paintwork on this one, as we have some nice dark greens. You can see like a really dark green that moves through a good portion of the face, but you can see like a little bit of a lighter green right there, and that lighter green kind of runs down here, but then you also see some light hints of like some grayish tones. We also have a black for the beak. We can see a very nice yellow for the eye with a black pupil and a beautiful gloss coat on that area. As you move up into the frill, you can also take note to a lighter tone of green that shows up there on the upper part of the frill, as well as again some really nice smooth paintwork for the spikes moving over the top of the frill of the Styracosaurus. And what's cool is on top of the really nice paintwork, you can see very nice detailing within those horns. There's also kind of like a little satin shine on them as well, which you do also see here on that kind of nasal horn, which looks really good. And again, look at how smooth the transition is. The paintwork for these figures, honestly, they have no right being as good as they are for such a stylized figure, but I love it. Of course, when it comes to these figures, there is articulation, so you do have an articulated jaw on the inside of the mouth. We can see if my camera focuses, we've got the tongue in there. It is also painted with a purplish tone. You can kind of see the teeth on the inside of the mouth as well. And you can see the teeth there on the upper side of the inside of the mouth also, and again that purplish tone running up there onto the upper side of the inside of the mouth. And as you can see, that jaw works pretty nicely. And overall, again, I would say that is an excellent looking head sculpt with some really nice paintwork for a stylized Styracosaurus. You do, of course, also have articulation in the neck, which you can get left and right. You can get some really nice turns and everything in the head area. You can also go up and down, and you can actually swivel, so you can get all sorts of different poses and stuff for the Styracosaurus if you would like. And again, it also goes up and down, which you can see. Again, basically moving that neck area wherever you would like. As you move back into the body, again, the skin texture continues to look really rough and rugged, very stylized for sure, but I would just imagine that, you know, the skin of the Styracosaurus would be extremely hard if you happen to have the ability to go up and touch one. But you can see, again, all sorts of really rough scales, as well as variation of color. You kind of have like a darker tone that sort of highlights those osteoderms that move over the top of the back, as well as kind of running through the side of the dinosaur. As you lead down, you have a different, kind of like a little bit of a darker green moving into the front leg right here. As you move down into the feet, you can see the toes. You can also see the nails are painted again with a nice black. Same deal as we move back here into the rear leg. You can kind of make out some muscle definition and stuff, but also, again, some variations to the greens, as well as, again, the toes, and, of course, the nails painted with that black. And then as you move back out here into the tail, you do, of course, have a really nice short tail for your Styracosaurus. And, again, the coloration looks really good. There's not a whole lot of, like, flashiness or anything to it, but I think what they have applied looks really nice. You can also see a lighter tone for the underside of the Styracosaurus, as well as kind of like some larger sort of scoots moving down the center of the stomach of the dinosaur. And then when you turn it around and take a look at it from over here, again, it looks pretty much the same, and of course it's going to, considering it is an articulated figure. You're not going to see a whole lot of difference from one side to the other. Of course, on top of the jaw and neck articulation, you also have leg articulation forward and back, and they also kind of move out away from the body a little bit. Same deal for the rear legs, forward and back, also out away from the body a little bit. So you've got some really nice maneuverability and posability with the Styracosaurus. So that is definitely, again, an excellent addition to this line. We also have the Triceratops. Now, we have already gone over the sculpt of the Triceratops in the previous review. I don't know what's on the horn right there, but Obviously, again, we don't need to go over the actual sculpt. This is just a different paint variant, and you can see it's got like some really cool reddish tones. And what's weird is, it seems like they kind of match them up at times with some of the other dinosaurs, because the T-Rex and Triceratops seem to have pretty much almost the same sort of thing going on as far as the tones of color in this set. And I remember there was like a green and green T-Rex and Triceratops in the last set and stuff, so like they really do kind of match up, at least when it comes to the T-Rex and the Trike, they kind of match them up in a way. But you can see moving through this one, you've got different variations of like blacks and dark reddish tones here in the face. You also have like a light tone here for the lower jaw that transitions back to almost like a pink as you move back there through the lower jaw. You can also see some beautiful browns up there on the horns. Again, that nice gloss coat has been added to the horns to help them shine really nicely. A little bit of a darker tone there for the nasal horn though. And as you move up into the frill, again, just kind of like a jumbled amount of that different variation of color with the blacks and the reddish tones. And it looks super nice. They did a really, really good job when it comes to painting this figure out. You can also see yellow eyes with a nice black pupil. And of course we can articulate the jaw. You've got a nice pink there for the inside of the mouth. That does move up there onto the upper side of the inside of the mouth. You can, of course, continue to articulate the figures just as you have the entire way through. So same articulation on this one as we had on the previous Triceratops. As you move back, you can see a lighter sort of tan for the back of the frill. You can also see, again, some lighter reddish or pinkish tones as you move down further into the body, as well as a really light tone for the underside. You've got the nails painted with almost looks like a dark green, actually. For the nails, and then you also have some darker tones as you move up and over the top of the back of the dinosaur, and you also have some scutes and stuff and osteoderms and stuff moving over the back of the Triceratops. I'm kind of curious if it actually looks like the body itself might be the same for the Triceratops and Styracosaurus. We just have different paint apps, obviously, but also different heads. So these two are extremely similar overall, but you can see again that the new Triceratops does look really quite nice when it comes to the paintwork. And of course, that means the T-Rex, again, same sculpt as before, just different paint apps, also looks really good. I think the reds are a bit more vibrant on the T-Rex, especially here on the lower jaw moving down into the throat. We as well have a dark tone that moves up and over the top of the Rex. And as you move down, you see that darker tone follow along the back the entire way through, with some more of the more vibrant kind of reddish and pinkish tones moving down through the side of the dinosaur, and then kind of like a yellowish tone for the underside of our T-Rex. But you can also see there's like a reddish wash that has been added to the underbelly of the T-Rex as well. You also have some lighter tones as you move down into the feet of the dinosaur, darker tones as you move up, and you've also got the nails painted again with a nice black. You do also have the nails painted with the black there for the fingers. And of course, again, you're going to see all the same articulation on this T-Rex as we had seen on the others. You can see a nice light tone there, like a light gray for the teeth, and then of course a pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth, with actually a little bit of purple on the side here where the skin stretches. So again, it's very impressive to me how much paintwork they actually put into this stuff. Like, really, really quite mind-blowing how good the paint apps are on these very stylized dinos. Then we've also got a Spinosaurus, and this is the other brand new release when it comes to this line for Wave 2 as far as new species go. And you can see the Spino looks awesome because it has almost like, you know, a more accurate sort of updated look, but also, again, a very obviously stylized look, which I really like. There's a little bit of chip of paint there or something taken either out of the tooth there, or actually a few teeth, or maybe some of the paint from here kind of ended up on the teeth. I'm not too sure, but I can see that. But the skin texture looks really nice. You've got kind of like a brownish tone for the upper part of the dinosaur. You can see the nostrils right there, a darker brown as you move back there toward the eye area. You see some reds kind of running up and over the top of the head of the Spinosaurus, as well as a light gray for the lower jaw that actually transitions to a black as you move further back. You can, of course, if I can get a hold of it, articulate the jaw and open the mouth. We can see the teeth all sculpted pretty nicely, again painted with a light grayish sort of a tone, kind of almost close to like an off-white. We can see the tongue on the inside of the mouth painted with a pink and everything. and the pink does run the entire way through the inside of the mouth, even where the skin is stretching once you open the mouth. The teeth overall are painted actually fairly decently, except for that one area that has a little sloppiness, but for the most part, they're okay. I think maybe that's just a little bit of blood that's on the tooth of the Spino. We've also got a really nice yellow eye for the dinosaur. Kind of actually looks like there's some white and a little bit of yellow in there, and then a black pupil. Again, that jaw works really nicely, closes very nicely. We also have super smooth articulation in the neck of the Spino, and I don't know why, but the neck articulation on this one seems to be the smoothest I think that we've had the entire time. Like, look at how good that neck articulation is. Like, you can really get some very interesting poses for this Spino in the neck area, so definitely quite impressed as far as that goes. We do have that red moving up and over the top of those kind of like armored scutes on the back of the Spino. As we move back, we do have a different lighter brown for the sail area, with some of the reds kind of polishing off the top of the spines of the dinosaur as you move along. The skin texture looks very vibrant in that area as well. We also have some of the reds highlighting some of those scutes moving down along the bottom of the sail. Again, the darker brownish tone for the primary body does turn to a gray for the underside of the dinosaur. If we move the legs open a little bit, you can get a good feel for the skin texture and everything down here. And then you lead out, and you do have kind of like a little paddle-like tail for the Spinosaurus, with some more of the reds and browns and grays leading the entire way out there through the tail, looking really cool. Articulation-wise, you can, of course, articulate the arms. Again, forward and back, they can basically swivel and also come out and away from the body, kind of go back in. So some really nice articulation in that area. You can also kind of get a good feel for the musculature of the arms, focus camera, as well as the fingers looking really nice, the claws as well, and of course the claws are painted with a black. As you move back, you can see very armored skin texture moving down through the thigh, the musculature again of the thigh, as well as that really nice looking foot sculpt, which actually does appear to have like some webbing between the toes, which is a very nice touch. And then you can also see the claws again, sculpted nicely, looking kind of genuinely sharp, and also painted with a black. And we do actually have dew claws, which are also painted. Man, these things are so impressive. And then, of course, as far as the articulation of the legs, forward and back, also out away from the body, really quite smooth. And you also have ankle articulation, which you can swivel and go forward and back as well. So again, you can really get some nice poses and displays for your very exaggerated Spinosaurus figures. But that's definitely a really, really cool Spino. Then we've got ourselves another of the Styracosaurus, of course, same sculpt, but different paint apps. This time we have a really nice light, kind of almost like an orangish brown for the primary body color. You also have a darker brown that moves up and over the top of the head. You can see all of the horns, again, painted really nicely. They kind of have like either a dark wash, or they started with a dark tone and then sort of dry brushed some of this paintwork over it. I don't know, but it looks really nice. Definitely helps to highlight the detail of the horns. And we have a nice gloss coat again applied to the horns. We can see the eye is again painted with either a gold or a yellow, given a black pupil. Also has a nice gloss coat. Well, of course, the beak also shares the same sort of coloration as what we have for the horns. We have a pink for the inside of the mouth, again, just like we've had on pretty much all of these. Again, the articulation would be the same for this one as it was for the others. You do have a lighter tone on the back of the frill. You've also got kind of like some darker shades of browns that move over the back of the dinosaur, lighter shades of browns as you move down. Super smooth transition to the lighter tone here on the side. That again leads to the underside. This one could have used a wash, I think. If there was like a nice dark wash applied to this one, would have really amped up the realism of this one, because it looks, you know, really nice, but maybe a little bit naked without the wash because the tones are just so light. But it is still a pretty cool paint variant. Nothing really all that crazy or different from the first one, just a very different color scheme. Then we've got what I would say is probably the best of the two Spinos, because we've got a really cool bluish version, and they actually had a very similar coloration to this on the previously released Bandai Spino that was like a smaller model-like version that was swimming. It had a bluish coloration, a very similar kind of patterns and stuff with that one as well. But as you move through the face, you can see again some nice light blues for the lower jaw, somewhat darker blues as you move up, and then an even different shade of blue as you move back closer to the eye. You do have kind of like greenish eyes, like a light bluish green for the eyes, nice black pupil, very impressive gloss coat added. Again, you can articulate the jaw, just like you could with the others. The teeth are painted with that same light tone, kind of like an off-white, like we had seen on the others. Again, the pink for the inside of the mouth. We do, of course, also still have that really nice articulation in the neck of the Spinosaurus, and of course, the articulation would be the same for this one as it was for the others. As you move back, you start to pick up a light striping that kind of runs down. You can match it up very nicely, so it kind of leads through. That striping stripes down along the top of the spino and then up through the sail. There are some darker bluish tones up there in the sail, but that really cool white that runs through it definitely helps to make that area super flashy looking. There's all sorts of variations of blues as you move through the body as well. As you can see, a darker shade of blue here compared to here. It's a little bit lighter as you move back. Different shades of blues moving down through the leg. As you lead down, it does lighten up a bit into the feet, which do have a really nice light blue. You can see the claws, again painted this time with like a dark brown, and of course same deal for the claws there on the hands. And as you move out into the tail, you do again have some different shades of blues leading out, as well as that white stripe that actually turns into more of like a broken up stripe. Like it's a stripe still, but it's like sections of the stripe with kind of like spots leading out, which does again look pretty cool. And again, that nice light blue for the underside, and of course the same thing when you look at it from the other side. So an absolutely awesome Spinosaurus. Also, I actually don't even think I mentioned the articulation of the tail on the last Spino. You can articulate the tail left and right, up and down, and it can swivel, so you can get all sorts of poses when it comes to these super cool little articulated dinos. So again, I think that's pretty much all we really need to do with this review. I don't think we need to do measurements or comparisons or anything, because they are obviously the same size as the first round of figures. So if you want to see more of like a comparison size-wise of these figures, you can check out the first review, which does feature some other versions of the T-Rex and Triceratops. But clearly these figures are very much so in minifigure size range. Still super impressive when it comes to both the sculpt and paint. Like, Bandai absolutely knocked these figures out of the park, and I am definitely hoping to see more of these moving into the future. I really want to see, many more waves of these guys, because these are probably some of my favorite Bandai figures that I have ever acquired, and definitely some of my favorite Bandai figures that they are making currently. They're just so cool. They kind of have like that old school charm, but with a new school sort of way, if that makes any sense. Like, some of the dinosaurs have that vintage feel, but they also have kind of like an updated feel. They have very impressive, very vibrant detail, extremely impressive paint apps considering the type of figures that they are, and the articulation is beyond impressive considering how small these dinos are. I really wish Bandai would actually create some larger, like standard-sized articulated dinosaur figures. They could be some of the best out there on the market if they did that, and obviously this is kind of an example of that, showing you just how good and how impressive these figures are with their articulation, paint apps, and sculpts. So if you are interested in these, I did purchase them on AliExpress. I will include a link in the description to where you can grab them from there and add them to your collection. So make sure you check that link, grab them if you want them, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.